survive, but to thrive. How to become the best me I can, just like I always try. And I was researching blind plus anything on Google, blind plus outdoors, blind plus running, blind plus whatever. And I found that a blind man had climbed Mount Everest. Yeah. The only blind person to ever do it is Eric Weinmeier, is a buddy of mine, and I sought him out.
Hey, Aaron.
As it turns out, what's that?
Hey, Aaron, I want to stop you there real quick, if you don't mind, and I apologize for interrupting you. But, this is really where we want the podcast to begin in terms of the value for our listeners. We needed the backstory because I want people to understand the challenges and the obstacles that you have in your life before you start achieving these great things that we're going to talk about. Because, it's so often we get wrapped up in our little worlds at home. Maybe we got some bills that are overdue and the grass is too long and the kids are stressing you out. And we allow that to infect our own success in business and pursuing our dreams and pursuing the right job or making good decisions. And to hear your story and the things that you are going to have to overcome to achieve success somewhere else is just astronomical. And I really want that to sink into our listeners so that they have the gravity of what you're about to talk about and the things that you've achieved. And first of all, thank you for your service and the sacrifice that you made and what you've given us as Americans, literally your sight and your hearing. And by the way, listeners, I had to talk to Aaron very briefly before the show just to make sure that we had the logistics right based on his ability to hear the interview and communicate. And, it's just I'm really, really impressed and honored to have him on the phone. So, Aaron, I apologize for interrupting you, but please continue on with your climbing story. But I just wanted some context for people to hear the rest of your story.
Well, I appreciate that. It was, and you're welcome. It was an honor, a pleasure, an absolute privilege to have had the opportunity to serve. And people ask me if I would have had the opportunity to do it again, would I? Without a doubt. In fact, I tell people I'd go out now if somebody just gave me a good rifle and an even better spotter. But so I was facing these difficulties. I first had to learn how to navigate a world in the dark. And got the cane, and I was in the VA hospital, and I first learned how to navigate. The room, then the ward, then the expand out to the floor and up and down the stairs. And they said, I would tell people I was taking the stairs versus the elevator because it was, the only workout I was getting. The truth was I got lost on the elevator. I didn't know Braille yet. So it just expanded from there. And that's one of the the biggest keys of my life is that I was reaching for these outrageous goals. Starting with being the best sailor and then soldier I could, to then just being the best blind person, best father. It continues, but it starts with learning how to take those first steps. So I was, learning how to be blind, but at the same time, I was trying to figure out how to be like these guys I was reading about online, like Eric, and climbing these mountains. So I sought him out, and it turns out that he started an organization that takes wounded veterans up mountains. So I joined the 2013 all-veteran team of these warriors of Peruvian mountain in the Peruvian Andes, the 18,000-foot peak. Of course, in doing so, I had to train, and it's really hard to find a decent mountain in Florida.
Yeah, I bet.
So I began running. and even that is, poses its own challenges. It's not very safe for me to just step out the front door and just go for a jog. Everything becomes a team sport, and that's the same with running. I have a running partners, and all we do is we have a tether. A simple tug of war rope works. I hold one non, partner holds the other non, and we just run shoulder to shoulder. And it's of course incumbent upon my running partner to tell me when there's a curb or a speed bump or an open manhole cover. But I found ways. You find ways to deal with it, and what I call finding the right tools in the kit. In Afghanistan, for example, when I was an Explosive Ordinance Disposal team leader, EOD team leader, we train very hard, and we are given entire shipping containers. A three-person team, a three-tech team, is given an entire shipping container full of hazmat gear, bomb suits, detectors, power tools, everything we possibly need to take care of IEDs and unexploded ordnance out on the battlefield. But it all comes out with us to the battlefield. But once we get there, we get this armored truck, and we can only fit so much gear in there, and we have to leave some behind. And then in Afghanistan, for example, we're working in goat trails, and we're dismounted. We're on foot patrol half the time, more than half the time. So now we've got a rucksack. What tools do you put in there, and how do you deal with the tools you don't have? I learned how to dismantle and dispose of most everything on the battlefield with a couple blocks of C4 and a rope and a hook. So now, and the rest of my life, I'm dealing with a few missing tools, but I've got so many other skills, other team members, and other tools in my kit, so to speak.
Yeah,
and making good on that. So this was in 2011 when I lost my eyesight, and for a few years I was on my way to really mastering my life, mastering my body as it is then, and I was off of this whirlwind trip where I'd gone to Colorado, climbed 14,000 foot peaks in a day. I'd gone hunting in Texas and shot an animal with a good spotter, and then I went to Montana, and I was kayaking class 3 rapids. I'd just gotten back home, and I was feeling pretty awful. I can't come down with a terrible headache. I was dizzy, and I was on the phone with my girlfriend at the time, and she was asking me what was wrong. And I said, I just need to take a nap. Maybe it was too big a trip. I laid down, and I woke up a few minutes later to find with the most horrendous migraine, terrible headache of my life. And within minutes, I knew I had to call 911. And the operator said, what the state, the nature of the emergency? I said, I'm a little embarrassed. Ma'am, I've got an awful headache. And to her credit, she said, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the level of pain? I said, ma'am, I've never felt anything like this in my life. And I've literally been blown up. So she said the ambulance was on the way, and as it turns out, I'd contracted bacterial meningitis. And over the course of the next few days, either the meningitis or the heavy antibiotics I was given to save my life stole what was left of my hearing and plunged me not just into total darkness, but in total silence. So again, I had to deal with missing another tool and how I was going to face life. My girlfriend came out and with my mother, and they nursed me back to health. My sister, who is a nurse, helped translate all the medical jargon and help, restore my health. But I was trapped in my body. I was completely locked away, isolated. That sensory deprivation type thing, where all I had was my sense of touch. I couldn't see, couldn't hear, and I'd lost my sense of balance as well, the inner ear balance. So I was in a wheelchair. I couldn't run. So much, all that technology that I had, all that audio-based technology that helped me, read my emails, listen to audiobooks, communicate with the world, and it was all locked away from me. So again, face those demons. Why me? What if? When have I paid my dues? Those kind of questions, like when has this soldier had enough? And it was hard. Never felt like, never seriously considered becoming one of the 22 service members we lose each day. But man, I can definitely sympathize. I was in an awful place, but I had to deal with life. I had to, I wasn't at that time. I was no longer a service member. I took my medical retirement, but I still felt this duty to, as a soldier. I felt, and I certainly am a father, so I have that duty, and I had to do my best. I had to stand up and work on becoming better and in healing and recovering from this situation. And I did what any person in this situation would do. I started a chocolate company.
Yeah.
It wasn't that simple. It took a lot of work. And my girlfriend at the time, wife now, was there writing in the palm of my hand every letter of every word that I needed to, that she needed to say to me, or anybody needed to speak to me. That's how we communicated until the cochlear implants restored some of my hearing. The blast damage on my right ear was so extensive, the scarring in the inner ear was so bad that it didn't work. So for 6 months, while I was waiting for the left one to be implanted, heal, and tuned in, I was locked away in my body, and all I had was, for some reason, I had the Hawaii 5-0 tune playing in my head nonstop, which is kind of cool sometimes and kind of not. But I finally got on I was using my trekking poles that I was climbing the mountains with to just get to the mailbox and back. And that would be exhausting. And I'd get on the treadmill, and I would just, hold on with that G.I. Joe Kung Fu grip on the rails and walk. And eventually I started jogging, and then I was running. And then I had enough balance that I would hold on with just one hand, and I could swing an arm, and then I would switch and swing the other arm. And I was becoming whole again, or as close to whole as I could. And in 2017, about a year and a half or so after the illness, I ran my first marathon since 2015, when I ran the Boston Marathon. I ran my hometown marathon in Akron and PR'd, and also got reached my sub 4 hour goal. So I'd run the best marathon of my life, but it was the hardest marathon I'd ever run. Mm-hmm. It was also about the time that Thanksgiving was coming, and I wasn't I wasn't going to, just sit around. The holidays are my favorite time of year. One, it's time to bring family together, friends together, and be grateful